"You're really going to do this?" she asked, her voice trembling just enough to make him pause. He didn't look up from her phone, his thumb scrolling through the messages with a calm precision that made her stomach twist. "You said it was just for fun, didn't you? No secrets, no lies. Just a game." She swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the edge of the couch. "It is just a game. I don't have anything to hide." His eyes flicked up to hers, and for a moment, the room felt too small. "Then why are you sweating?" It had started as a joke. A stupid, harmless idea over dinner. They'd been laughing, teasing each other about their phone habits, how he always had it on silent, how she was constantly scrolling through social media. "I bet you've got some wild stuff on there," she'd said, grinning as she sipped her wine. "Secret apps, hidden folders, the works." He'd raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "And what about you? You're always so protective of that thing. What are you hiding?" She'd laughed, but there was something in her laugh, a hitch, a pause, that he hadn't missed. "Nothing. I'm an open book." "Prove it," he'd said, sliding his phone across the table. "Switch for the night. No secrets." She'd hesitated, just for a second, before nodding. "Fine. But don't freak out when you see how many selfies I take." Now, sitting on the couch, he wasn't laughing anymore. The messages were right there, clear as day. Flirty texts with someone named Jake. Photos she'd sent, nothing explicit, but enough to make his jaw tighten. And then there were the apps. Hidden folders with names like private and work stuff. He clicked on one, and his stomach dropped. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low and steady. She leaned forward, trying to see the screen, but he tilted it away. "What are you talking about? It's probably just..." "Don't," he interrupted, his tone sharp enough to cut through her excuses. "Don't even try to explain this away." Her face paled, and she reached for the phone, but he held it out of her reach. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "Jake is just a friend." A friend who sends you messages at 2 a.m. A friend who gets photos of you in your pajamas?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now, a quiet anger that made her flinch. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting together nervously. He stood up, pacing the room as he scrolled through more of the messages. Each one felt like a punch to the gut. The flirting, the inside jokes, the way she talked to Jake like he was someone special, it was all there, laid bare in black and white. "How long?" he asked finally, stopping in front of her. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and pleading. "It's not serious. It's just fun. I didn't think it would hurt anyone." "Fun," he repeated, his voice flat. "You didn't think it would hurt anyone." She reached for his hand, but he stepped back, shaking his head. "Don't. Please," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I don't know what I was thinking." He stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he handed her the phone and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice breaking. He paused, his hand on the doorknob. "I'm not going to fight with you. I'm not going to yell or scream or demand answers. You already gave me all the answers I need." She stood up, taking a step toward him. "Wait. Let's talk about this. We can fix this." He turned to look at her, his eyes cold and distant. "There's nothing to fix. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them." And with that, he opened the door and walked out, leaving her standing there with her secrets and her lies. The silence in the apartment was deafening. She stared at the closed door, her mind racing. What had she done? How had it gotten this far? She sank back onto the couch, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. Her thumb hovered over Jake's name in her messages. Should she call him? Text him? Tell him what had happened? But what would she even say? That her boyfriend had found out? That it was over? She opened the app, scrolling through their conversation. The flirty banter that had once felt exciting now felt hollow and empty. She deleted the messages one by one, her hands shaking as she erased every trace of their connection. But it wasn't enough. She knew it wasn't enough. The damage was done, and no amount of deleting could undo it. She opened the hidden folder labeled private, staring at the photos she'd taken for Jake. Photos she'd thought were harmless at the time but now felt like evidence of her betrayal. She deleted those too, one by one, until the folder was empty. But even then, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was too late. He knew. He knew everything. She dropped her phone onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. What was she going to do now? How was she going to fix this? The answer came to her slowly, like a cold wave washing over her: she couldn't. There was no fixing this. She'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. But lying in it felt impossible. The weight of her guilt was crushing, suffocating. She needed to do something, anything, to make it stop. She grabbed her phone again, opening her contacts list. Her finger hovered over his name for a moment before she pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times before he picked up. What? His voice was cold, distant. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, finally, he spoke. Sorry doesn't change anything. And with that, he hung up. She sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the blank screen of her phone. The silence was unbearable, but she didn't know how to break it. Finally, she stood up and walked to the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of wine, her hand still shaking as she lifted it to her lips. She took a sip, then another, hoping the alcohol would numb the pain. But it didn't. Nothing did. She set the glass down and leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the city lights below. What now? She stared at her phone, the screen glowing in the dim light of the kitchen. The wine had done little to calm her nerves, and now her mind was racing with possibilities. What if he's already made up his mind? What if it's over? The thought sent a sharp pang through her chest, but she pushed it aside. She couldn't let it end like this. Not without trying. Her fingers hovered over the screen, hesitating for a moment before she opened the camera app. She adjusted the angle, making sure the lighting was just right. She bit her lip, considering her reflection. This has to be perfect. She slipped the strap of her tank top off one shoulder, letting it drape loosely. Her hair fell in soft waves around her face, and she tilted her head slightly, her lips parting just enough to suggest something more. She snapped the photo, then quickly reviewed it. It was provocative, yes, but not overtly so. Just enough to remind him of what he might be losing. She attached the photo to a message, her heart pounding as she typed out the words. Miss you. Can we talk? Her thumb hovered over the send button. Is this too much? Too desperate? She shook her head, silencing the doubts. She pressed send before she could second-guess herself. The seconds ticked by like hours. She set the phone down on the counter, pacing back and forth in the small kitchen. Her mind raced with scenarios. What if he ignored her? What if he responded with anger? Or worse, indifference? She picked up the phone again, checking for a response. Nothing. She poured herself another glass of wine, trying to distract herself. But the silence was deafening. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, her phone buzzed. She nearly dropped the glass in her haste to grab it. His response was short, almost clinical. We need to talk. But not like this. Her stomach dropped. Not like this? What did that mean? She typed back quickly, her fingers trembling. What do you mean? I just want to fix this. Another pause. Then. Fix what? The lies? The secrets? Or just the fact that I found out? Her breath caught. She hadn't expected this. She thought the photo would soften him, remind him of the connection they once had. But instead, it seemed to have only pushed him further away. She typed again, her words more urgent. I made a mistake. I know that. But I want to make it right. Please. His reply came faster this time. A mistake? Is that what you're calling it? You were talking to him for weeks, sending him photos. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. He's not going to let this go. She tried one last time. I was stupid. I wasn't thinking. But I love you. Doesn't that count for something? There was a long pause before his response finally came through. Love doesn't erase betrayal. We'll talk tomorrow. But not like this. She stared at the screen, her heart sinking. Tomorrow. What would tomorrow bring? Would he even show up? Or would he just disappear from her life entirely? She set the phone down, her hands shaking. The photo she'd sent suddenly felt foolish, desperate. What was I thinking? She walked to the living room, collapsing onto the couch. The silence of the apartment was suffocating. She reached for the remote, turning on the TV just to fill the void. But the noise did little to distract her. Her mind kept circling back to his words, love doesn't erase betrayal. She pulled a blanket over herself, curling up into a ball. The weight of her actions pressed down on her, heavier than ever. What have I done? She closed her eyes, trying to block out the thoughts, but they only grew louder. Hours passed, but sleep never came. She checked her phone repeatedly, hoping for another message, some sign that he might still care. But there was nothing. Just silence. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, she gave up on sleep altogether. She got up, showered, and dressed mechanically, her mind still racing. What will I say to him? How can I fix this? She grabbed her phone, checking it one last time before heading out. Still nothing. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever was to come. I have to try. As she stepped out into the cool morning air, her phone buzzed in her hand. Her heart leapt as she looked at the screen. It was him. I'm at the park. Meet me there. She hesitated for a moment, then typed back. On my way. The walk to the park felt like an eternity. Every step brought her closer to the inevitable confrontation, and her stomach churned with anxiety. When she finally arrived, she spotted him sitting on a bench near the fountain. He looked up as she approached, his expression unreadable. She stopped a few feet away, unsure of what to say. He stood up slowly, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The tension between them was palpable. Finally, he broke the silence. So. Let's talk.